From Bosstrack, it's Her HypeSquad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you in your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Hello everyone, it's Michelle Harris rolling out the red carpet for an all-new episode of Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack. Today we're diving deep with Kat Newport, a mastermind in flipping conflict into growth, a visionary author, and the founder of Oculus Inc. We talk about resilience, anchoring in optimism, mastering the art of emotional rebound, and the power of unleashing your creative spirit. But first, let me give you a little bit of insight into Kat's background, setting the stage for a conversation that's nothing short of transformative. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and perhaps even see the world a little bit differently. Kat Newport, an associate certified coach and certified change practitioner, is the visionary founder of Oculus Inc. and author of the upcoming book, Smart Conflict: Turning Disputes into Growth Opportunities. With a passionate mission to harness conflict as a catalyst for growth and innovation, Kat empowers individuals and organizations to thrive. Her charismatic approach, rooted in the values of authenticity, resiliency, and momentum, specializes in leadership and conflict management, creating lasting positive impact on all collaborators. Kat boasts national director-level leadership in quality assurance, project management, and organizational development, shaping comprehensive training programs and individually coaching and transforming countless leaders. If you enjoy my conversation with Kat, be sure to subscribe to our channel and help more people find us by sharing this episode with others or by leaving a review. Or subscribe to our weekly newsletter filled with things we found that we're excited about and we're inspired by, along with valuable leadership advice to watch, listen to, or read. It's a little bit of joy for your inbox each Monday. You can subscribe at www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. Now, without further delay, here's my conversation with Kat Newport. Hi, Kat. Thank you so much for joining us today on Her HypeSquad with Bosstrack. We're so excited to have you on, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'd love for you to share your background with the audience, a little bit of, let them know a little bit about who you are, and we can dive right into the conversation.
Sounds good. Yeah, as you already know, I'm Kat. Yeah. I am a conflict to growth architect, change navigator, and the founder of Oculus Inc. I'm a former or recovering corporate executive, I guess you'd call it, a recovering corporate executive with experience in quality assurance, risk management, and organizational development. And currently I'm an entrepreneur who works internationally, coaching clients, empowering up-and-coming leaders in small to medium-sized businesses through one-on-one coaching, training facilitation, and all that kind of stuff, dealing with conflict, transitions, and growth.
That's a lot. That is quite a bit. And so important, especially in today's environment. And one of the things, well, essentially what we're diving into is resilience, which is something that we're all kind of thinking about right now with the economy and with the way work is going. I'd love for you to define resilience in the context of professional, like people's professional careers.
Sure. So resiliency within a professional setting is the ability to set goals, adapt, actively engage in self-care. There's something you probably didn't expect. Remain persistent while flourishing during challenges, and the whole time mitigating negative consequences. So there's multiple facets when you take a look at resiliency, but goals, adaptation, self-care, persistent, all the while flourishing, I think is a good sort of summary of that.
And just to help people understand, is there something that you can provide from your own experiences where you had to pull in your resilience to overcome something in your professional career?
Just one? Where do I start? So let's take a cataclysmic one. It was earlier this year when in 30 minutes, I went from having a 17-year-long career with this organization, over 2 decades of experience in this particular industry, to being unemployed. I was packaged out. Very, very much spontaneous, very much unexpected.
Hmm.
So there's definitely some resilience that goes along with losing a job, losing a career, losing almost an identity because I've been doing it for so very long. Um, so how did resilience tie into this? First things first, I had goals outside of the career, outside of the job. I knew, even though this was a long-standing career and I was aiming for that gold watch, there were other things that I wanted to do. So I had already started, dabbling in some education on this and looking at different avenues of once again becoming a consultant. So there was something to look forward to. I also saw the package as an opportunity. It's very, very easy to see things like this, particularly something this dramatic, as something very negative. Why does this happen to me? Oh my gosh, what were they thinking? Getting very locked into a negative mindset. And I actually saw it as an opportunity. One of the things I actually said to my boss is that, like, I'm really sorry we have to let you go. Is like, are you feeling okay? What are you thinking? And it was, I'm free. After 17 years doing kind of the same thing, I'm free. It almost immediately switched into that opportunity mindset. Number three, I jumped into building a support network. I already had friends, I already had family, I already had organizations I was working with outside, but I doubled down knowing that, all right, this is my opportunity to jump back into entrepreneurship and do a pivot, building out that network, getting to know people in the community, getting to know people in the industry I wanted to move into, which was quite different from where I was before. And I think finally, resilience definitely tied in here with learning a little bit more about grace. Grace to give myself the time to grieve. And it was very much a grief moment. I had lost so much, friends that I used to talk to every day, a career, self-perception of who I was and how I interacted with the world. So, and I still do struggle from time to time. This wasn't oh, look, it's all over. But allowing myself that grace to struggle and grieve and continue to struggle and grieve as I tackle new activities.
Yeah, and it's important too to remember all these really apply even if your next step is a different career with a corporate like still in the corporate environment and not in a consulting like you don't necessarily have to be kind of going off on your own to really lean into your support network. I think all those things still really apply.
100%. And it doesn't have to be this dramatic of a transition, right? It can be as simple as welcoming a new baby into the family. I mean, something still monumental, but it still involves that, change of identity and change of dynamic. So it doesn't have to be something, cataclysmic like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so unfortunately I've had a lot of colleagues, former colleagues or friends go through the same thing where suddenly they're being laid off and they feel what did I do? Like what did I do wrong? Like what misstep did I take? And off so often it has nothing to do. You could actually be the star in your department, but for what there are all kinds of reasons decisions are made. And unfortunately, a lot of times, obviously, it's not relayed to you what they are. So you're often left with that. What did I do wrong? Like, and I like that you said give yourself the grace because you do have to let yourself get through that.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. We talked a little bit prior to our conversation here about grounded optimism. And I'd love to hear your take on grounded optimism and why it's so important in leadership.
When people say optimism and you think of optimism in a workplace, sometimes it can go a little bit to the unicorn and rainbows side of things. Grounded optimism is not quite that effervescent. Grounded optimism is the maintenance of a positive and hopeful outlook while still being rooted in reality.
Mhm.
So it's that balance of the two. So that optimism with the realism. This is important for a leader because it helps you motivate and inspire not only yourself, which is intensely important, but if you're leading a team, this helps you motivate and inspire them. The why of it. This is how we're moving. It's not all doom and gloom. Um, it also helps you effectively problem solve. As holding on to that reality part gives you the data and the understanding of risks and opportunities, and optimism gives you the courage to capitalize on it. So it definitely helps that problem solving side of the house. It also helps you manage risks. If you're in an overly optimistic frame of mind, you might take risks that are not prudent. If
Mm.
you're in the opposite frame of mind, that overly negative side of the way of thinking, you become very risk averse. And in any business environment where you have to be creative and you have to innovate and you have to iterate, avoiding risk at all cost is not healthy for your career. Grounded optimism also keeps an eye on the roadmap. It keeps that eye on the vision for the future of not only your career, but of the business or of the project or whatever you're tackling. So it keeps that forward momentum going.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of things in that. And it is important to add the grounded piece to optimism because as a leader, people can understand when you're just being optimistic and you can't just be like this is so positive all the time because they know they can see like it's not always going to be positive. And I think there's a level of trust that you get as a leader to identify where there are risks and what how we're going to get there. That it's not going to be rosy the whole time. I think there's a lot of value in just building trust with your team by not being over just optimistic all the time. I don't know if that is in line with what you were saying.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely builds that professional credibility.
Hmm.
Having that balanced outlook on life gives the opportunity for people to see you and say, no, this person is on the right track. This person isn't going to lead me wrong. So it helps with that professional credibility, not only with the team that you're leading, but also looking at it from your supervisors and your leaders' perspective. Seeing that grounded optimism builds their confidence in your ability to take your career to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting with our leadership cohort right now. We've been revisiting strategy and revisiting good strategy, bad strategy, the book. And when it very early on in the book, he talks about what is strategy and what it's not. And often leaders can look at strategy like it's all optimism, like this is what we're going to achieve. But he's very clear that that is not a strategy. You have to understand the risks. You have to understand how we're actually going to achieve it and what that's going to look like and what are we going to do in situations where something happens. So I think it's such an important, it's not something that we talk about a lot in the sense or in the context of business and where we're headed.
Very much so. And that brings to mind a quote. I can't even remember where I heard it from, that hope is not a strategy.
Yes.
I hope it'll turn out okay. You might need a little something more than that.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, do you have any strategies that you recommend or that you suggest people use to maintain that balance of optimism, but also that sense of realism?
Very much so. The first one comes out of my quality assurance background here, and it's stay informed. Understand what's going on. You need the data to make informed decisions. So
Yes.
make sure you're gathering that data from all the sources, not just the financial data, but your quality data, okay, your operational data, your performance data, all of it needs to come in. Stay informed. That way you can say, okay, this is where we are, this is where we're going, here's the optimism, but in reality, we have a little bit longer to go than I anticipated.
Mhm.
Number two, acknowledge and address emotions. And this one is so tough. And I'm not just talking about your emotions, I'm talking about the emotions of your team as well. Change is scary. You have to address that fear in your team. Failure is hard. You have to address the emotions that come up with failure, and failure is part of this journey. I know it's a 4-letter word, but it's the F-bomb that we all need. All need to fail somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're acknowledging and addressing those emotions, super important. Once you have those two down, it's ensuring that you're setting realistic goals. Again, not too risk averse, all doom and gloom, and not overly optimistic. We'll hit $1 million by the end of the quarter. Maybe not this quarter, maybe 6 quarters. Yeah. Set
Mhm.
those realistic goals. And I'm going to sound a little bit like your mom here, but practice self-care. Really, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your team. So making sure you're sleeping, you're eating, you're exercising. And I'm not trying to to be your mom here, but it is important that that self-care becomes part of your leadership journey, because you're in charge of taking care of other people too, taking care of a vision of an organization or your own if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I love that because that's so we have 8 pillars that underline our leadership approach, and one of them is wellness because we believe that it is so important. How do you suggest that people do balance like their career ambition with their wellness? Do you have certain ways to tell people to look at it, or there are certain things to prioritize?
So there's this sort of 90-20 rule that I play my life by, or 80-20 rule that I play my life by. You take 80% of the work and you really hit it and you hit it hard, but you do need that 20-minute break. You
Hmm.
need that 20% of the time when you're doing something other than running the race and reaching for the goals. So once you start looking at that 20 as an investment into your ability to run the race, just like any athlete, they have to take rest time between their training time. It's the same thing. You've got to put that investment into your own energy so you have it to give at the end. So we're in leadership, we're in business, we're in entrepreneurship. Investing in your own rest time is just as important as running the race.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. And it's interesting it is really hard to take that little break that you need. Like I have this goal of like work 15 minutes, make sure I'm taking a 5-10 minute break, work 15 minutes, and I'll use a timer often. But it's so easy when you're so focused to be like, ignore, I'm gonna keep working. But the thing is, like, you remain productive for so much longer if you give yourself those little breaks, even though you feel like you're being productive in the moment, and you don't wanna lose that. Do you agree with that?
Very much so. If you read some of the studies that are coming out on flow state indicates that the human brain can kind of only hang on to really intense thought processes and thinking and creating for 60 to 90 minutes. So if you're going past that 60 to 90-minute window in front of, your computer or in that meeting, really hard thinking, creating, and you tip past it, you're not optimal here.
Mhm.
It's going to be really painful to get to the same level of performance you were at the beginning of those 60 minutes. So, taking that break, taking that 20-minute break, taking that 15-minute break to get up, stretch your legs, grab some water, walk around the block, get outside, even if you don't smoke, get outside, walk around, shake it off, and come on back again. You're more likely to get more done by
Mhm.
taking the break than by powering through.
Yeah, totally agree. And I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about failure. Um, so failure is hard, and sometimes it can be hard to not wallow in it for a while and get yourself down, and imposter syndrome comes in, and then that you can go down a pretty deep hole pretty quickly. Like how do you suggest people think about failure and not allow themselves to get into that hole of negativity?
First thing that comes to mind here is failure doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means the activity has not turned out like you want it to.
Mhm.
It's not an internal judgment on your inherent value, which can always lead us, I can't do this. I'm not the person. I'm so stupid. I don't, no, it's an indication that the thing you were attempting to do didn't work out so great. It has no value on, I, Kat, have failed. Number one. Number two, acknowledge the emotions that come with it. Failure is hard. And I'm back into this acknowledging emotions. I mean, I come from the generation where, emotions don't belong at work.
Hmm.
Emotions are always, always.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the emotions you're feeling. It is important that you're disappointed, you're sad, you're frustrated, you feel silly, whatever it is. Making sure that you honor that. Again, this is going back into that grace concept we talked about a little bit earlier. And engage in that self-compassion. And this sounds terrible, but be careful that you're not shoulding on yourself. You should have done this. I should have done that. How could I have not done this? I should have done this differently. All those shoulds are external expectations and our hindsight. You did the best you could with what you had in the moment. And
Hmm.
shoulding just keeps you trapped in that negativity.
Uh,
And lastly, and one I find super hard, I actually have to I actually have to work at this one myself, is celebrating the small wins. I actually keep a notebook of just things that I do that, yeah, I did a really good job on it. Darn it. I rolled out socials for 2 whole weeks. This is good. That was tough. It's so easy to forget the good things we do in a day. So writing them down sometimes can help, or at least, honoring it. Like, I'm going to stand up and stretch because I did a really good job on that. That helps maintain that optimism, that positivity, and that forward momentum.
yeah, that such great advice, and I really like the fact that you can't look at the shouldas because you often know after a situation a lot more from the perspective of you just went through the situation and you can see it from a different perspective than when you were going through it. Does that make sense? Like that you're judging yourself from a perspective that you didn't have originally. So it's just not that gets back to that learning experience.
Very much so. And the human brain plays tricks on us. It doesn't always tell you the truth. Your brain can be very tricky. It sits there and says, well, that precognition piece, I should have known this in the moment, or I did know this in the moment and I didn't do something with it that I should have.
Mhm.
It's a falsity that's built into your internal narrative. So if you can catch it as it kind of creeps out of the woodwork, like, oh, no, no, no.
Yeah.
It makes the shoulda, woulda, couldas a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah. It is so interesting how your brain can play tricks on you. But if you know that it can happen, then you can easily use it on the other side too, where you're talking about creating that file where I have all of my wins, so I can just open that up and say, "Oh, look at all these things." I think Gretchen Rubin called it her to-do list that she keeps, like everything that she has accomplished, so she can go in and remind herself that she is a capable person.
Yeah, beat that imposter syndrome down in your own head for sure.
Yeah. Um, How do you think resilience plays in careers for women in particular? Do you think there's a difference for women versus men?
Yes, is the short answer. The long answer, the short answer is definitely yes. I think emotional resiliency for women in a leadership role is absolutely prime. And I don't think I'm overstating that. Technical expertise is great, but if you don't have the resiliency to maintain the course, we're not going to be reaching the goals that we want to. In the workplace, I mean, as women, we have to navigate and challenge biases that are already built into a workplace. We work in a very capitalistic, very male dominated environment. I mean, I'm coming out of an industry that is male dominated, period, end of sentence. And I started when I was a very young woman. So, some industries are better than others. Some are harder than others. But there's that constant challenge of, no, I am capable. No, I can do this. And so that requires emotional resiliency to push back against those assumptions that are coming out of that workplace. We also have to address the societal narratives. When you walk in and you speak your truth and you know what you're doing and you're confident, In a man, that's fantastic. There's a leader. Look at that. Holy wow. In a woman, you can be not a nice woman. You can be a bossy woman. You can be, you know, the quintessential B word. You know, these societal narratives we find ourselves pushing up against when we want to embody our own truths. So that requires emotional resiliency as well. And finally, as women, we still do the lion's share of the homemaking. We still have all the emotional load and the mental load of maintaining a home while still showing up at work. It's, you know, we show up at work like we don't have a family, and we show up in the family like we don't have to work, but we're still juggling both of them. It does require that emotional resiliency. So it plays a huge role into the longevity of a career for a woman.
Yeah. What do you have any advice for women who are faced with the I guess issue of coming in and knowing what needs to be done, being confident in their decisions and being assertive when they need to be, and having to deal with that perception that they are bossy or they are aggressive? Do you have any suggestions for because I mean, I can tell you people have talked to me quite a bit about that, so it happens quite more often than I think well, maybe we're not surprised.
I can't say that I am. To be quite honest with you. This is something that I struggled with throughout my career. I'm of a generation where you were raised to be a good girl, you know,
Mhm.
and what a good girl should be. A good girl doesn't come out and do this, and a good girl doesn't come out and do that. You know, you should be quiet and you should be nice and you should support other people and don't take the limelight, and, you know, help as much as you can. And all of these good girl things sort of became ingrained in me. And I know a lot of us have those very similar narratives coming out of the way we were raised and the societal expectations. There needs to be a certain amount of courage, and it doesn't have to be a lot of courage at the beginning, just a little bit of courage to start the ball rolling. And I remember one particular instance where I did actually confront this in the workplace. I was in a meeting and I was there for risk management. And my job was, okay, these are the risks. This is how we're going to manage them. Risk management. And we were going around trying to solve this problem, And here's Kat. No, there's the risk here. And we got to do this to mitigate the risk over there. And oh, we got to eliminate that risk over there. And I had a colleague turn to me and he says, you know, this would be so much easier if you weren't here. And I'm like, okay. Well, that just happened. And it was one of those moments where I was going to do, you know, that quintessential Canadian thing and go, gee, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, is my existence bothering you? You know, and there was just this tiny little spark. And it was just this little thing is like, no, this is the time to stand up. And I looked at him, and as you can tell, I'm very soft-spoken. I looked at him, and it was loud enough for the entire table to hear. And I was like, my job description is to mitigate risk. Are you asking me not to do my job? You could have heard a pin drop in that room.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, and it was not this huge thing. It wasn't a massive conflict. It was just a tiny little bit of courage to that one fellow in that one room. And he looks at me and he says, well, I never thought of it that way. And we continued, and it went much smoother from that point forward. But it was just finding that spark of courage and then acting on it in the moment, I think, really tied into that for me. I think I got your question.
Yeah, you did. And I'm thinking too, what about people that can't think that quickly on their feet? Because I can imagine a lot of people, especially like if we're thinking about some of the newer leaders in the audience, where we can say have courage, but the courage might come after, okay, shocked that this happened, don't know exactly what to say in this moment, think about it afterwards. What can they do afterwards if they don't know kind of how to like deal with it in that moment?
100%. So if you don't get that spark in the moment, and I think some of my best comebacks are in the car on the way home.
Exactly. Yes.
uh, if you don't have that spark in the moment, it is, you start weighing whether or not you need to have a conversation with this individual and engage in positive conflict.
Mhm.
You know, what is it about that moment that is really, you know, troubling you? What is so uncomfortable about that moment? And do you need to deal with it? I mean, that could have been dealt with, not necessarily in the moment. It could have been dealt with the next day after I had that ride home in the car, and going up to him and saying, my friend and colleague, what you said in the meeting yesterday, I think was really inappropriate. It undermined my ability to do my job. Moving forward, if you have an issue with risk management, can you come to me privately or on the side? Can you do that for me? Standing in that empathetic assertion, and taking that step back, giving yourself time to unpack and recognize those emotions and reflect on those emotions and what you want to come out of that moment, is super important. So it doesn't have to be spur of the moment. It can be a little bit of time to give yourself that space to breathe and to build that compassionate response and to the event.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that too, when you have those revelations on the drive home and you're like, oh, should have said that, should have done that, definitely having that conversation, because it's easy to think, oh, the situation's gone. I'm not going to confront the situation. I'm just going to know for next time. But there is value in bringing it up, and you can bring it up in a positive way so that it isn't, you being confrontational to that person.
Absolutely. And not everything needs the response, right?
Mhm.
Yes, you were uncomfortable. Yes, you're looking for emotional solace, but does it really need that conversation, or can you take care of yourself to get over that uncomfortability? Or is this something
Yeah,
that needs to be confronted?
right.
Is this something that needs to be fixed? And then do that professionally and positively. So
Yeah.
it's that balance time, and sometimes you do need that space to figure out, is this just me reacting because I have this internal script going, oh, he sounded just like so and so,
Mhm.
not really, nah. Or is it a moment where we do need to take care of this, because moving forward we got to work together and we
Yeah.
got to make sure this doesn't happen again.
That's so true. So true. That's a great addition. You mentioned positive conflict. Could you talk a little bit about what is positive conflict versus just how people think of conflict?
Absolutely. Definitely right up my alley at this point. Conflict to growth navigator. Yeah. So positive conflict has two defining factors for me. Number one, it starts with the self. What is it in me that's reacting to this situation? Number two, it then focuses on the future of the relationship. Where do I want this relationship to be when the confrontation or the conflict is over?
Mhm.
So many times people will walk into a conflict going, I just need to feel better. You were so stupid. If I yell at you, I'll be so much better. Uh, but not really looking at why you feel this upset and uncomfortable. Where is it coming from? What's that core? What's that root? And not really looking at where they want the relationship to be after that. If you have to continue to work with this individual and see them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for however long both of you are with this organization, how that relationship plays out and how you're going to interact with this person moving forward becomes a big component of conflict.
Mhm.
So those are the two things that I think positive conflict definitely needs to have involved.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great way to look at it, versus I think it helps you come into it. I don't, and you use positive in a positive way versus being, scared or hesitant to have a conversation.
Very much. It's important to be smart about conflict, and making sure that you're walking into it with your career in mind, with your relationship in mind, and with your personal health in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that, so we talk about resilience and what's this thing that you should strive to be is be resilient. Is it something that people are just more born and naturally able to be resilient, or do you think it's something that can be learned over time?
This is definitely something that can be learned and enhanced over time. Period. End of sentence.
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, I do want to point out that resilience isn't a state of being, that all of a sudden you step into the light and all of a sudden, ta-da, I'm resilient.
Yeah.
It's not this transfiguration, right? This is a process. And yes, I'm resilient in this type of situation, but I'm not so resilient in that type of situation. It's this evolutionary process. So yes, it can totally be learned if you don't have resiliency, although I think most of us do. And it can definitely be enhanced if we're feeling the pinch of situations where we don't find it. To do this, seek out those things that make you uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Seek those challenges. Get out of that comfort zone, not into the zone of panic, but definitely outside of the comfort zone. Seek those challenges that helps you build that neural network. It helps you build that experience bank saying, I've done this before, I can do this again. Um, Cultivating social support is also incredibly helpful. And when I say social support, it's not just that one friend you go to vent.
Mhm.
It's multiple people with different perspectives on it. I have this one group over here, and we go to the gym together, and this is the kind of support I get from them. And I have a really great mentor that helps me with my professional career, and that's what I go to for them. And I have my partner that really helps with that emotional solace piece. Making sure you have that social support around you, and if you don't, start looking for it, start cultivating it. Hugely important. Um, and the last one I want to go into, probably not one anybody wants to hear. Accept failure.
Mhm.
Accept the failure and adapt from it. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that didn't work so great and you're going to do it better next time.
Yeah.
That's all it means.
Yeah, and going into those uncomfortable situations leads me to the idea of fear, because there is a certain level of fear going into a situation that's more challenging for you. Is there a time in your career, when you were in corporate or in your leadership role, where you felt fear and how you managed through that?
All the time.
Mm.
Whenever there's something that you're learning new, I think that there's always going to be a certain amount of hesitancy and fear that goes along with that. The story I told earlier of sitting in that meeting and as a risk manager, it seemed like an hour that I sat there just looking, going, do I say something? Do I not? Do not? Um, and that was a moment that I hit that fear straight on. I was frightened to stand in my own authority, to come
Mhm.
across as not the nice girl, not the good girl. If I clap back at this guy, what is that going to do? Am I going to get fired? Am I, the whole worst case scenario slide? It's the slippery, slippery slide. And there was that moment that I had to say, no, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to see how this works and face that fear. And it in the end, it did turn out quite well for me. And it started the ball rolling. It wasn't this transformative moment where it was, oh, I'm not scared anymore. I'm a little less scared now to do it again.
Mhm.
And it's that process and progress that you make with that.
Are there any kind of activities that you recommend people do to learn how to move themselves through fear?
Moving self through fear. So when you're in that moment and you've got the emotion and it's just running super high, I like to use the 4 R's. Um, recognize that you're scared, because a lot of us get the feeling. I mean, the heart starts to beat, the hands get sweaty. We're like, "Ooh." And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, or they're making me feel this way. I am feeling anxious, I am feeling scared. So recognize the emotion as it comes up, whatever that means, and reflect on it. Why am I scared right now?
Mm.
um, and sometimes the answer to that question might surprise you.
Mm.
We're so used to running on scripts in our own head. Whenever I come to the boss and I ask for something, I always get scared, because why?
Right.
The answer might come out of the blue. And then take some time to release that emotion.
Mm.
Emotions are like pain. They tell you something's going on. Move your hand off the hot stove. Ouch. The emotion is the same. You're scared. Why am I scared? Is this something that I can move through, or is it something I have to move away from? Most workplaces these days, we're not likely to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, so fear is a little less life-threatening.
Yeah.
But definitely find a way to release it. Go for a walk, shake it out, grab a coffee, grab a drink, do something, and then reframe it. I am scared because of this, but the benefits are this, and I'm deciding to do whatever it is. I'm going to move
Mhm.
ahead, I'm going to move away. It makes it a conscious decision. So recognize, reflect, release, reframe.
Yeah. And curious, I've heard people talk about fear setting exercises where they'll make a list of things that they would go into, and it's more on the personal side, like situations where I'd be afraid to do this, but I'm going to push myself through the fear and do it. And kind of starting with like little things and like working up. So exercise that your ability to kind of rethink fear. Do you subscribe to that? And do you agree with that?
Very much so. This is that exposure, right?
Mm,
Start with something little. That one time I talked to that one guy in that one meeting. It's just once. But it was enough to start moving the ball a little bit forward. It
hmm.
made me a little bit braver to try something a little bit different, a little bit bigger next time. You know, confident enough that my wings would catch me if the tree branch fell.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about falling because I know I can fly. And that confidence is a gradual buildup. Again, it's not that transfiguration in a moment going, oh, look, I'm no longer scared. This is something you continually work on through different events, through time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I particularly like one of the things they might tell you to do is to go out and to like a regular store and try to negotiate the price. Like, I don't, it's so interesting because I don't think I've ever tried it. So I'm curious if things like that really like work. Maybe I have to try that sometime.
Next time you got to buy a new car, start negotiating with the dealership.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's similar to, I mean, I guess there are times when maybe I've gone somewhere and said, well, is there a coupon? But I feel like that's a little different than just saying, can I have 10% off of this?
Levels. There's levels. Start with the coupon, move to the 5%, then go to the
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking of ways like even outside of work that people can think about getting past like f- fears. So it doesn't necessarily need to be them taking some kind of a risk at work. They can also think about what can they do outside of work that might help them.
100%. If you're thinking, my ideas aren't good enough, I'm not creative enough, go take an art class. Be
Mm.
creative, show it to other people. Just start that exposure on the level that feels most comfortable for you. You don't have to cannonball into the swimming pool. It's okay to dip your toes.
That's true because there could be situations where somebody might be afraid of embarrassment or like people judging them, and doing something like that, like taking an art class and actually telling people that you're doing it and showing them what you're doing. I mean, that in itself can be something to get you past that discomfort and fear of judgment.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that judgment is not necessarily the other people are going to judge me. It's I'm scared they're going to judge me. So it's your own brain
Yes.
kind of eating itself a little bit here. So yeah, take that first step in a low risk environment.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose.
I mean, I have a few questions that are a little off topic from resilience and conflict, but I'd love to hear about your book. I mean, you have it in the background there, Smart Conflict. Could you tell us a little bit about the book and why you decided to write it?
Absolutely. So, Smart Conflict Turning Disputes into Growth Opportunities is coming out in 2024. This was one of those forward momentum things when I was packaged out of my career. I had always wanted to write a book. And it was always, well, I'm too busy. I'm working. I'm traveling. All of these things. Is oh my gosh! And then I all of a sudden had no job, and it's like, okay, if not when, now is good. So it was definitely one of those things that kept me rolling in the first few months after being packaged out. So there's that resiliency piece that goes with it. Conflict has always been a massive part of my career. I come from a heavy, intense quality assurance background.
Mhm.
If you want to see conflict, try going into someone's workplace and tell them they're not doing their job quite right. Um, you know, and smart conflicts evolved from that idea. So again, it's that understanding the situation, making sure you're measuring your emotions, having an agenda, know where you want to end up in a conflict, be very aware of those relationships and pick the right time and place, and it's very much geared toward leadership. It's very much geared towards the professional world and how to manage conflict in a professional world. But there's a lot of takeaways for your personal life as well, because wherever there be two people, there's going to be conflict, because conflict's just
Mhm.
a difference of opinion when
Yeah.
you boil right down to it in this context.
Yeah, so true, so true. And if you go to smartconflictbook.com, can you sign up to be for information about when the book is coming out?
Oh, absolutely. There's a
Okay.
community on there. Sign on up. You get the newsletter of all the fantastic things that are coming. And yeah, I'm looking so much forward to like February, March of next year, just to get it in my hot little hands.
It's always exciting to put out a book, and congratulations on writing it. I know it's a process. I've done it myself, and it's not it's not easy.
The process, yes, a process it is.
Yes. Well, I would love to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of our standard questions I like to ask all of our guests. And the first one is about mentorship. Is there a mentor that you can look back in your career and attribute some of your success to that you can think of?
Absolutely. The person you choose to spend your life with, I think, has the largest impact on your career. So I think the mentor that's had the most impact on my career would be my partner. We've been together now for 20 odd years, 22 years. And they've always been the one who has been my cheerleader, saying, no, you can do it. So when that self-judgment and those self-doubts come in, they're on the side with the pom-poms, right?
Yeah.
They may also be behind me with the cattle prod saying, no, you can do this, go, go. So yeah, I think the person you partner with for life has a huge impact on career.
Yeah, that's so true. Congratulations on 22 years. I know that requires some resilience in itself.
A little bit, yeah.
Being funny, but yeah, that is so true. That response has never come up, but you're so true. They should be a mentor to you and in your life, in your career.
100%, absolutely. I don't know where I'd be without him, to be honest.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about well-being and taking care of yourself. What is there something that you do every day, a ritual routine you that keeps you grounded and allows you to maintain your mental and physical well-being?
Absolutely. I have two of them, but the one that stands out and kind of jumps out first is be creative every day. I surprisingly enough, I'm an artist as well as business and conflict management. It works. You know, paint, draw, make music, dance, write something. Be creative. It takes you out of all the shoulding and the woulding and the coulding and the reaching of the goals and lets you express yourself. And I think that really helps ground in who you are and that authenticity piece.
Oh, that I love that. Is there something you've done recently that you could tell us about, or is it just something new all the time?
I do a lot of acrylics on canvas, and I do a lot of sketching and drawing. So yeah, I
Hmm.
just yesterday I finished another sketchbook. It's always so satisfying when you
Oh.
close one. It's like, oh, that one's full of everything. And then we'll look at that one again later. So yeah, absolutely. When the stress gets, you get anxious. Entrepreneurship is stressful. When you just need that moment to walk away and go, yeah, it's time to just take a moment and doodle something really quickly, or maybe take an hour and do something a little more complex, depending on what's going on. But yeah, be creative every day.
And I don't mean to belabor this, but I think that creativity is so important and involving yourself in creativity is so important. Where where do you learn to do the different things? Did it just come naturally and you self-taught? Did you watch YouTube videos? Like where do you source your projects or what you do creatively?
So I've always loved to doodle and draw. I find it's a
Mm.
way to get out of my head and a little bit more into the heart space. So there's always been that doodling and drawing. So there was an automatic sort of link into the drawing. And I love looking, just scrolling through Instagram. Mine's all puppies and artists. Just seeing what other people are doing, going, my goodness, that's amazing. I'm really inspired by that. I think I want to try something like that. So, having that curation on my Instagram, I'm very, very picky with what shows up, and getting that inspiration going, okay, I'm not going to sit here doom scrolling. I saw that thing and it's really, really awesome. And it's inspired me to do something of my own. Um,
Very nice. Very, that's a great approach. I hope this inspires people to try to add some creativity into their lives. What about a song is there a song that you will put on that gives you a little confidence boost or energy boost?
Absolutely. And it's on my gym playlist. It's like the first one that comes out, and it's surprisingly enough, it ties into sort of the theme that we've been doing today. We've been talking about good girls and what good girls should and shouldn't do. I really love the song Good Girls by Elle King. Because I stopped trying to be a good girl a long time ago, and it definitely has the good beat and has a great message for me and moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And is there something that you've bought in the last year or so around $100, under $100, that has made an improvement in your life in some way?
Actually, yes. Oh, it's not something that I can give you the code for, and you can go out and
Yeah.
buy one yourself. But I love rummaging through vintage stores,
Uh,
and I ended up stumbling across this really awesome blazer. It's circa like 1983. This eye-popping purple with a navy blue collar. Just the lapels are great, and it fit. And I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. Nothing really fits really great when you come across vintage stuff, but it fit like a glove. It was so my style, and it spoke to my authenticity, and I'm very bold, and it made my heart happy, and I had to have it. So just finding something that reflected my inner world on the outside was really great.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, I love your glasses. Do you
Yep.
remember where you got those?
These are I buy direct, actually, and I have an entire collection. So depending on
Uh,
where you see me coming up on video, they change all the time.
yeah, I love them. I love those. First thing when you popped on the video, I was like, oh, I got to ask her about those glasses.
If I gotta wear them, they gotta be cute.
Yeah. And lastly, is there a book that you would recommend, besides your book, of course, when it comes out, that you would recommend our listener or, yeah, our audience read, that will help them in their careers, or maybe fiction that was, interesting and you'd recommend?
Absolutely. And it's actually sits on my desk. I refer to it a lot. It's not a big book. It's actually very slim. It's called The Gift to Listen, The Courage to Hear by
Mm.
Kari Jackson. And it resonates so much for me because we talk at each other a lot as human beings. We talk at each other, but we never really listen to one another deeply. And I think Kari Jackson takes that concept and explains it very well, very accessibly, and very quickly. Like I said, the book isn't that great, isn't that big. It's a great book, but it's not that big. There we go. And I can't recommend it enough. The Gift to
Oh,
Listen, the Courage to Hear.
thank you. We'll share that in the show notes. Okay, well, Kat, you are officially part of our audience's Hype Squad. Is there one last piece of advice you'd leave everybody with before we end the conversation?
I think it ties into what we've been talking about all along, embracing your power and your voice. Know that your voice and your assertiveness are essential to your leadership journey, and putting the mute on yourself um, isn't helping that leadership journey. So embrace that power, embrace that voice, and know that this is going to challenge those societal teachings most of us have gotten. Be quiet, be that good girl, um, be bold,
Mhm.
be authentic.
Excellent. Excellent advice to leave everybody with today. And thank you so much for your time, Kat. If everybody wants to find you, where is the best place for them to find you? Can they reach out to you? Where should they reach out to you?
Absolutely. You could find me on LinkedIn, Kat Newport, and on Instagram. Just getting into that whole Instagram thing. Taught myself how to do it. Embrace the new. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and I also have a business website, oculuscoachingyyc.com.
Okay, perfect. And we'll share that all in the show notes for everybody to access. And thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your valuable advice, your wisdom, and resilient, everything about resilience. It's so important for us to figure out. And I think you've left everybody with some very actionable tips that they can implement to start allowing themselves to be more resilient in their careers and in life.
It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
Oh, great. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk with you soon. Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly episodes. And if you're really feeling it, please leave a review. We'd love to have your support. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter where we share things we're excited about, things we found funny or inspiring, and must-read leadership videos and articles we came across that week. You can subscribe by going to www.thebosstrack.com/weekly joy. That's www.thebosstrack.com/weekly joy. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.